Hello, everyone, and welcome to Venita's podcast. It is a pleasure to be here with you today. Um, very grateful that you decided to join me today. And I have a very special guest. All my guests are very special because I appreciate the time they spend with me. His name is Jose Ortiz. He is
Hello.
my guest and he is my technician because none of this would be happening without Jose. So, hi, Jose. What's going on?
Nothing much. I'm glad to be here. I haven't done a podcast in a good minute, but I'm glad to be in your podcast, and I'm always glad to help you when you're in need in the podcast.
Thank you. And it's because of you that I wanted to do this podcast with you because we had a conversation a couple weeks ago regarding, financial literacy
Mm-hmm.
and, starting your life and things like that. And I wanted to share that information not only with you, but with, all young people or people that are just starting out. I have two sons. One is still at home, so he could benefit from this information. I just think it's important to get information before you make a move
Mm-hmm.
because going back is hard, especially when you're talking about, like you're at home, finish school, going to college or working or whatever you're doing, and then you decide, okay, I'm ready to move out of my parents' house or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So before you decide to do that, I feel that it's important for a few steps to happen before that.
Mm-hmm.
Because of my experience, I moved out when I was like 21. I had no money. It was me and my boyfriend, now husband. We got together. We rented an efficiency, so we were all in one room. The only furniture we had was a bed. We really didn't have any money, and we struggled. So I kind of learned the hard way. So, and now my profession is insurance and financial literacy. So I like to share with
Mm-hmm.
everyone, not to make the same mistakes I made, because going through financial stress is a nightmare when you don't know where the money's going to come from to pay your bills, or you lose a job, or your car break down. It's like $1,000 to fix it, and you got to take the money from Peter to pay Paul. It's just
And
not a good thing.
and sometimes what I understand, even though I'm still young, you can go to a car place to fix a car that's like minor, but they take so much time and like try to financially gyp you and be like, oh, this is also broken. They give you so many other things that are broken just to gyp more money out of you for a simple job.
Exactly. I use a lot of, I guess they call them like sidewalk mechanics, but they're licensed mechanics. They work at a shop all day, but they do side work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's who I use because the labor charges are astronomical. Some of them are like $150 an hour, and a lot of it is just labor. It's not even the part. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and you're right. You're not always dealing with, I wouldn't say honest people, but people that are just trying to drain you and get as much money as possible
Mm-hmm.
by telling you you need things now when they could really wait, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, things just happen. So my advice starting out, okay, I'll just use my son as an example. My son Jonathan, he's still living at home.
How old is Jonathan, if I may ask?
How old is Jonathan? Jonathan just turned 29.
Mm.
And so here's the thing. I love him living with us. I really don't want him to move out. That's just a secret. But I'm sure when he gets together and find the right partner or girlfriend or roommate or whatever, he will move out because he's going to want his own privacy. But Jonathan's very fortunate. We have a raised ranch, and it's just me, my husband, and Jonathan, and my dog. And so I call him Big J. That's his nickname. He has the entire downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I really only go down there to do laundry. He has a bathroom, the whole length of the house,
Mm-hmm.
and he only comes upstairs to eat, and so we don't bother him. He don't bother us, and we're older. We're like 60. I'm 64. My husband's 65. Sometimes I'm in bed at 8 o'clock. Johnny's up late at night playing video games or whatever. So we don't kind of run into. I could go days without seeing Jonathan in my house,
Mm,
depending on our schedule. So I think his situation is a little bit different than most
mm-hmm.
situations. So, but if he decided to move out, him or anybody else, if you're at home and you're 20, 21, 25, 29, or whatever your age is, I would recommend number one, save some money before you move out. And when I say save money, I mean you want to put yourself on a budget. And
Okay.
so I have an example of a budget sheet that I want to show everybody. And my budget sheet, this is how I learned to save money. I always on the first line, it says M&T Bank. I always pay myself first because what I used to do, I used to like pay all my bills, and there was no money left.
Mm-hmm.
So I started paying myself first, and I saved like $100 a week, comes out to $400 a month. That you have to pick an amount to save that you're never going to touch or you're not going to miss unless it's for an emergency, like if you lost your job or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So if it's $25, whatever that number is, have it come automatically out of your account, put it aside, and save it for a rainy day, leaky roof, whatever you want to
Okay.
call it. And so that amount, you want to build that amount up to 3 to 6 months times your cost of living. So let's just say, you pay your rent, your UI, your cell phone bill, and all that stuff. Everything you pay for the month comes out to just call it $1,000. So in your savings, before you make that move, you want to have at least $3,000.
Mm,
And the reason for that is, what if you lose a job? What if something happens like you get gypped at an auto mechanic shop or something and you just don't know any better and you end up needing $1,500? You want to be able to have enough money set aside to take care of emergencies so you don't panic,
mm-hmm.
especially if you have a roommate and you're going half on everything. Because if you're not able to come up with your half, that's going to create pressure on the other roommate. It's going to create problems.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's just, it doesn't matter if it's a high school buddy or girlfriend, that financial issue is going to cause a problem because you're not going to be able to meet your obligations. So that I would say is just the number one thing to do. And the way you plan for that is you set up a budget, kind of like the one that I have, or set up your own budget as long as you are paying yourself first and then you make a list of all of your responsibilities, your cell phone bill, rent, credit cards, whatever you have. Figure out how much that is, okay, for the month. And here's another clue. If you're spending more than you make, you're upside down and you need to make some changes. No matter what you got to do, you got to eliminate something, cut back on something. So if you're making $800 and your bills come out to $1,000, it's never going to work out. You got to cut back on something,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's Comcast or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you never want to be upside down. You always want to have extra money because financial stress it's just a beast. And once it starts, when one thing goes wrong, I don't know about anybody else, but for me, whenever one thing happens, then another one happens, and then another one happens, and next thing you know, you're snowballing,
Mm-hmm.
and a month later, your relationship is just wrecked, and you don't even know how you got there. You're
Mm-hmm.
arguing about all kind of crazy things, whether it's a girlfriend, boyfriend, roommate, or whatever. So, just to eliminate things like that, you want to make sure you have a budget. You want to make sure you have money aside. And I think things will go smoothly as long as you don't spend more than what you make.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just a great way to start a relationship. And I think it's also a great way to start a relationship is to make sure that you're going to half on everything. It doesn't matter who the man is or who the woman is or whatever. The As far as I'm concerned, that's how me and my husband started out because when we got that one bedroom, that efficiency or whatever, we were like I was 21. We were boyfriend, girlfriend. We were breaking up, making up. And so we just entered it into a partnership. He paid half of everything and I paid half of everything. And we had one checking account and everything just worked out from there. We still have that same checking account that we opened. And that way, it just works, you know? A lot of guys feel the pressure that they have to pay the rent and, the woman buy the food or whatever. That's history. That's so antiquated now because a lot of times women make way more than a guy. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I made more than my husband this year, but I'm in sales. I can make a whole lot less than him in 1 year. I can make a whole lot more than him in 1 year. It all depends because I get paid based on commission. So, do you have any questions about moving in, moving out,
I
or moving in, or anything that
I
I just
have
said about
a
the budget?
bunch. I have a bunch of questions,
Come on.
mostly about the budget, and I
Okay.
wanted you to explain, like, let yourself and let people understand the beginning how you feel and what they should do. Now I'm gonna ask, as like me personally, because I don't make a lot. How should I, or how should people budget if they don't make a high salary? Let's say they're making like 300 a week. How should they be able to like save that money? Because sometimes you, as you said, you always have to save 100, but sometimes there's a lot of bills that you pay personally that you can't really always save like 100.
Right.
What would be a good amount to start off with to build up?
So I would say a good, the way you want to approach that is figure out what your bills are. Say you're only making 300 a week, and
Mm-hmm.
that's 1,200 bucks a month. Figure out what your bills are. If your bills are, say, 1,000 bucks a month, and you're making 1,200 bucks a month, and that includes everything miscellaneous, insurance, rent, everything that you're going to spend needs to be on your budget. And say there's like a $200 fudge, you
Mm-hmm.
know, fund left over. I would say a good amount of whatever you have left over after you pay your bills, whatever that amount is, 25% of that amount would be an excellent amount to save and put away because it's money you're not going to need. You don't want to put it all away because then what if something comes up? You want to leave yourself, say there's 200 bucks left, leave yourself 150, put 50 away.
Okay.
I think that would be so you want to focus on an amount that you're not going to miss. Even if it's 10 bucks to start, you just don't want to go back and get it. Once you go back and get it, then you need to save less. And then when you get a raise, add 5 or 10 bucks to it.
Okay. And speaking about the moving part out, because you were asking about, oh, what about moving out? How would you find places that would be good to move in? Like, let's say I'm my age, I'm 20, and I want to move out. I want to move with my girlfriend or by myself. What would be a good like app or a good place to look to move?
Okay, so that's not my field of expertise. I don't know. So I
Okay.
would recommend you to one of my networking colleagues or
Okay.
someone that's in an organization that's a real estate professional. They would be able to help you if you have bad credit. They'd be able to recommend a loaning institution if you need a loan for a mortgage. They'd be able to help you with one-bedroom apartments, two-bedroom apartments. That's their field of expertise.
Okay.
So I work with a bunch of people where I can refer you to a realtor or an accountant,
Okay.
or something like that. So, um, unfortunately, I feel like right now the economy and the rents and the mortgages are just so high. I believe that's why people like my son that's 29 years old that's still at home is still at home because
Mhm.
for one person to move out, um, depending on your situation, I know one person that was incarcerated and he's just looking for a room. Just a room in a house, not even having an efficiency, your own little kitchenette and bathroom. It's like
Okay.
900 bucks a
Wow.
month. That's crazy. The average house right now, I believe, is around 350 to $400,000. that's astronomical. That's a huge amount for one person to, have to deal with. I would always recommend, if it's possible, a partnership, a roommate. It doesn't have to be a girlfriend, but it could be a female or, a high school buddy or somebody. This way, you could share the responsibility. And if you do enter into, say it's a love relationship, like a girlfriend or whatever, like say me and my husband, you want to try to make sure that you know you're prepared for worst case scenario. One salary could pay all the bills.
Mhm.
That would be a comfortable, secure position to be in, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. So yes, it's so tough. And then you gotta, if you're young, you're gonna want to spend so much money, so you gotta put your entertainment on this as well. That's
Mhm.
included in the monthly budget. You're gonna blow, $100 a week or $50 a week on just going to the movies or whatever you're gonna do. So
Mhm.
that has to be part of it. Yes, those are excellent questions.
And but still going on your how you have it, your budget plan. So like seeing like the A&T and all that type of stuff. How is it like how can I keep a good way of keeping the budget without falling out of it? You know what I mean? Cuz let's say I'm trying to start my budget and like 2 months later I'm just like, "Oh, I'm struggling even harder even though I've been trying to keep a budget." And keeping it like a balance.
It's hard. I'm not gonna lie to you. If it was easy, everybody would do it. You just have to be committed to the budget, and you just have to know that, if you don't follow this budget,
Mhm.
you're going to suffer down the line. But having said that, you need to leave, you're young. So, say you want to buy a video game every week or whatever the heck it is you want to do, you got to leave that and say, you're going to blow $100 a week on, just going out to eat or this, that, and the other. Then you need to set that $100 aside. That has to be part of the budget. And you just can't, I know how hard it is, but you just can't, you know, break the budget. If you do, somewhere along the line is going to suffer. And
Mhm.
then the way I have this laid out is the company name, okay, the service or the product, the amount that's due, and then the day that it's due on. So if you're getting paid every week, and say for example you make your payments to yourself on the first day, your AT&T is not due until the 28th day, so you can kind of finagle a little bit with your pay. And I would say
Mm.
have that pay taken out automatically, and that can be painful if the money isn't there, because there's like a $37 fee if you bounce a check. So you'll have a lot of things to think about in mind
I didn't
to,
know
to
that.
stick to that budget. And another thing that will also help you, the $200 that we talked about, you save 50 of it. Say 1 week you don't do anything, throw it in a jar, have some cash at home. So when that time comes up for like Christmas or, whatever, you'll have extra money and you won't suffer, from breaking your budget. It's hard though. It's really tough because there's going to be new sneakers coming out. You're going to
Mhm.
want it that week. A new movie coming out. You're going to want to go to the preview that Thursday when the movie really doesn't show until Friday. There's going to be things like that. There's a lot of temptation. So you got to be prepared for that. You got to have a backup plan for everything.
Mm.
In the summertime, I would try to do all free things. There's free concerts and stuff
I did
like
not
that.
know about that. I
Hmm?
didn't know about free concerts or any
On the
type of free
green.
stuff.
There's free concerts on the green in every town. You should be able to get like an agenda. They have like little magazines to tell you everything that's going on in every town. They have
Mm.
different bands coming to the green. Right here in Bridgeport, old Motown. They have Juneteenth. There's parades. There's all kind of stuff going on in every single town. And yeah, they're usually free on the green. So,
Mm.
in the summer, you can go bike riding, just go to the park, go fishing, do things that don't cost anything. Because in the winter, you can't do that. You gotta be inside. You gotta go bowling. You gotta go to the movies. You gotta spend money.
Mm.
And so the key is to try not to spend money. you know? And it's easy for me. I'm from the hood. I never had any money. So I actually forget when I have money. So I don't spend money. Like before I came here, I ate a sandwich at home. I refuse to like stop at McDonald's or anything because that's just how I am. And I, I raised two kids on a tight budget. We
Hmm.
didn't have money for a while. We had two kids in daycare, we had a mortgage, and we just didn't have money. I even quit smoking to pay my daycare bill. That's how
Wow.
broke I was. And that's how committed I was.
And the funny thing is, my father, because he used to save a lot, and he always told me, save a little bit of money and just forget about it, and
Yeah.
just say, yeah, that money don't exist. When you're struggling, just still remember that
Hmm.
money don't exist. Save it when you have to pay for a car, or when you're about to do a big spending that you need to do it, like your first car, first
Yep.
apartment, anything like that.
Exactly. Exactly. You can save for your apartment. You could, buy things for your apartment while you're saving so you don't have to buy it when you're there. Because when you get a new apartment, the things you have now, you take for granted, like a broom.
Mm.
There's nothing when you go into an apartment. Curtains, there's nothing. So, and I'll tell you what my oldest son did. He moved out right away because him and I kind of clash. We get along great now that he has his own spot. So anyway, he did a spreadsheet, and I think he was 24. He did a spreadsheet for every room. He was going to need a bed, a dresser, a mirror for the bedroom, dishes, broom, whatever for the kitchen. And he went around to family members and asked, "What can you help me with?" Which was, I mean, he had a plan. He just didn't have enough money to get it all, but it was before he got the apartment. And so I thought that was a good idea.
Okay.
He went to college, I didn't. So, that was a great idea to me. Yep.
Hmm. And for once, I'm about to take that big step, maybe going to college myself as well. Still haven't decided which one to go to,
Mhm.
and haven't done none of that planning stuff. But it's just like, let's say a kid just become like 20 and all that type of stuff. And what would you tell them if they were just like fresh, didn't know anything?
Didn't know anything, still living at home,
Mm-hmm.
I would say to them, you're only 20 years old. You have your entire life ahead of you. If you are able to stay at home and go to school full time and get your education, that would be the most important thing because education is going to dictate salary in a lot of situations. Not all, but in a lot.
Mm.
And this way, you're just going to be well educated, you're going to make more money, you're going to make more connections, and you'll be more prepared to move out. You can take classes on, some of the things that we're talking about that will, help position you for whatever the future holds.
Mm.
Like my son, I thought when he went to college and I didn't, like I said before, and he came up with this great idea. I don't know what class he learned it in to get an Excel spreadsheet for every single room and list every single thing that he needed in there and try to get it before he got there. And so he had to learn that from someplace because it wasn't me. I guess
Mm.
he just looked to see what we had, maybe, but I didn't have that idea. He had that idea at like 24.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my number one advice to
Okay.
someone if you can do that. And if you can't do it, I would say, get a job, make as much money as you can, set up your budget, save some money, and pursue an online education. You're only 20. It might take you 4 or 5, 6 years, but take one or two classes, whatever you can, before the children come. If you don't have children, it's easier to go to school, to work full time and go to school part time and try to get your degree that way. Because
Mm.
a lot of times it's a lot cheaper getting it online than it is living on campus unless you're afforded financial aid. If you qualify for financial aid, take full advantage of it if
Mm.
you can.
Okay.
Definitely would be my
That's
advice.
that's great to hear that I should do all this type of stuff and learning new stuff. And I'm just glad that I'm able to be here and understand new stuff in life that I would never would expect or what I should be doing.
Mhm.
I've always been told budget, you should do this, do this, do this. I appreciate people helping me understand it, but I think seeing it and seeing how you did it, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. And saying that you have to a pay date, saying, oh, I have to savings the first day. something the eighth day, and let me just pull it up again.
Yeah.
You had the credit card the eighth day, and the life insurance the 16th, and just like seeing that you put dates on it, you're like, oh, okay, now I know. Oh, okay, this day I have to already have the money before it starts.
Exactly. Plug in, you can make a list of what you pay right now, even if it's just, pay yourself, your savings, and your cell phone bill.
Hmm.
You can start with just that and your entertainment. You gotta have your entertainment. You can put those three things on, plug in real numbers. Even if you start today, you figure out, okay, it's almost May 1st. You can figure out, save your receipts from all your entertainment. They're on your phone or, wherever, and just see where you are with spending money. Are you overspending?
I f-
You know what I mean?
Funny
Just
enough, I think I should make myself a spreadsheet after the stream is over, before you leave, and show you that what I'm going through, and so you can tell me what should I be doing, like improving on it.
where you can cut back.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand. Definitely. I think we can all cut back someplace.
Mm.
We have strength that we haven't even tapped into. God forbid. And I'm really, really worried right now because, we're going through something in this country that I think and I hope and pray to God that I am 100% wrong, but I think we're headed toward, a tough time. I don't want
Mm.
to say the word recession, but I think we're headed toward tough times because I see things that are going on. For example, in my next show with the David Goodman show, I'm going to be talking about 401ks,
Mm.
and how to preserve what's left and how to make up for what's lost. Because over this last 2 months, I know personally people that are in their 60s, like me, that have lost $200,000 in their 401k
Wait, how, if I may ask?
because of the market and
Mm.
the situation, the trading, the tariffs, the whole market. It's the stock market. Whenever there's so, and I don't want to say anything too specific, but I know that there's been tariffs opposed on reciprocal tariffs, opposed on certain countries, and they disagreed with it. So they are retaliating, and it's causing, you know, prices to go up. Like, say, for example, I buy my granddaughter a toy, and the toy reads inside, oh, made in China, and that toy used to cost $10. If someone opposed a 25% tariff on that toy, now that toy is going to cost $10 plus 25%,
Mm.
which means food, clothes, toys, electronics, prices are going to go up.
Mm.
And with some other things that's been happening, I'll take the federal government, for example. Like they're trying to clean up fraud, waste, and abuse, is what I'm hearing. A lot of folks in the federal that work for the government have lost their jobs. Are you aware of that?
No, I was not aware of
Oh,
that.
I would recommend young people watch the news
Mhm.
at least once every 3 or 4 days. It's important to know what's going on. So you need to stay up on current events and knowing these things. Like, have you heard anything about the price of eggs?
No.
Oh,
Now I
that
know
that's
they.
the biggest one, Jose.
What I heard was like some chickens are been getting sick or stuff like that, and
Yeah,
we're still producing their eggs.
some bird disease. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the price and things like that. The price of eggs used to be, I would get a dozen for like $1 and something. Now a dozen is like $6 for a dozen of eggs. So you see how something like that could affect your budget.
Mhm.
If you allocated, 50 bucks a week on just food, and all of a sudden the prices went up 25%, now you're talking $75 in just food, and that throws your budget off. So you might have to cut back on going to the movies or whatever, or something like that. So anyway, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things going on. and it's uncertainty that's causing the market. So like the S&P 500, Standard and Poor's, they're just names of indexes. Their stocks went down. So if, say for example, you bought 10 stocks in the S&P 500, and each one of those stocks cost you $100, and then all of a sudden it dropped 50%, so your $1,000 just went down to $500.
Wow.
Yes, so that's what's happening. Not that much. I'm gonna say, well, some it depends. If you have a huge 401k, I personally know someone that lost $200,000 in the past 2 months. I know my husband's 401k has lost money, but I'm such a chicken. I won't even look at it because I know it's down at least 5%. And so this is a problem for people like me in our 60s. That's our retirement money. What if that gets wiped out and we're just too old to work? I hope and pray to God that doesn't happen. I'm in insurance. I always think of worst case scenarios. But if the market does not balance out, if the market does not correct itself, it could take a long time to make up the money that's already been lost, and it's still going down. You still have 10 stocks, but they're no longer worth $100. They're only worth 50. Okay? And if the market went up at that $100, say the market went up 50%, then the stocks that you bought for $100 would be worth 150. But that's not happening. So on my next show, I'm going to be talking about how to preserve that. So there's a lot of uncertainty going on with the market, with prices, with, farmers. Like USA Aid around the world used to supply food for countries like Ethiopia that can't afford it, and, poor, starving kids and stuff like that. So a lot of those not companies, a lot of those organizations have been shut down.
Wow.
Okay, around the world. So guess what? The farmers in the USA that was growing the food to send there, guess what's happening to them? They're not making money. So there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things going on. And I know the news is boring. I never watched the news when I was young. I never did. I mean, unless it was like to see if it was going to be sunny or rainy or something like that, and I had a party. But I never watched the news. But now it's so important. So that's what's happening. And that's why it's important to stick to your budget and to kind of know what's going on and kind of know, what to invest in, which is going to lead me to the second sheet that I gave you. I called this the importance of retirement planning. And it has 3 circles. Each one of these circles indicates an account. The very first circle is called your now money. That's usually your checking account, because there's a lot of money coming in from your paycheck, money going out, and so on and so forth. And then the second circle, okay, let me go back to the first circle. That first circle, that's your checking account. And what happens, your check goes into it and it pays all of your bills, your miscellaneous, your entertainment, your rent, your food, or whatever, okay? Insurance and all of that. Whatever that number comes out to be, that is called your cost of living, your COL. And so we're going to call that, I think we've been calling it like $1,000. Okay.
Wow.
1,200?
Oh, no, I just said wow.
Oh, okay. So we're going to call your cost of living $1,000 and say your pay is 1,200. So once you're all done paying all of your bills, that's going to be $1,000 called your cost of living. That money goes into a black hole because you're never going to get a return on it. You're never going to get a return on, it's not an investment, it's a cost of living. So then we scoot over to the second circle, which is called your emergency account. That's the account that you should have 3 to 6 months worth of your cost of living in that for cases of emergency. In case, we have COVID again and the whole world shuts down for 2 months, or, or you get sick for 2 months, or just whatever. So that money in your emergency account is grown by whatever's left over from your first circle, which we decided we were going to save $50. You had 200 left from that, the 1,200. You made 1,200. You paid out 1,000 in bills. You got $200 left. You're going to save $50. That's going to go into that second circle for your emergencies. Okay. And you're going to let that build until you get 3 to 6 months worth. And when you get an emergency, you're going to take the money from the second circle, put it into the first circle, pay for your car, whatever emergency you have, and then you're going to replenish that second circle back up to your 3 to 6 months worth of your cost of living, which should be $3,000 to $6,000. Okay. Then I know this is boring, but it's kind of important. Once you get your affairs in order, then you could just go play and not worry about anything. But the third circle, because when I first heard this, I was like, oh, I wasn't, it's nothing exciting about it. But once you get everything in order, you feel a sense of accomplishment and you feel secure. And if something breaks down, you can take care of it. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel great.
That's right. If you can't work for a month and you don't get paid for a month and you can still pay your bills, you have that extra $1,000 in your emergency account, are you going to worry about paying your bills? Absolutely not, because you got that covered. You got this. Okay, so the third circle is when you start getting older like me. Okay, that's your retirement money. And in your nest egg, I call it. You see how I have all those little eggs in there?
Mm-hmm.
In your nest egg, there could be a ton of different things. There could be a house, a 401k, IRA, annuities, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, whatever. Everything you have in your 401k is threatened by four evils that I have on the bottom. At the bottom, I have LTC. That's called long-term care. So you heard about nursing homes and all this and that when you get old. If you don't have a long-term care plan in place, then whatever you have in your nest egg, you're going to have to pay for it out of that. And nobody saves, all of their money for their whole life to pay for a nursing home. So it's important to get a plan. And then the second evil is probate court. The third evil is taxes, and the fourth evil is market fluctuation.
What's probate?
Probate is probate would be, let me use me and my husband, for example. Me and my husband, gets killed in a plane crash, okay? All of our assets, if we're not protected, and this is why I show this, I can show you how to protect your money and all your assets from probate. If our assets, my house, his 401k doesn't, but our house and other probatable items such as cars, jewelry, and things like that, savings accounts, if it isn't protected, it gets frozen by the probate court. And what they do is they put an ad in the paper and they say, okay, Venita and Joe's dead. Do they owe anybody out? Do they have any bills out there? MasterCard, student loan, whatever. And they put an ad in the paper, and all of those places that we owe money produces a receipt to the probate court, and they pay out of our money, out of our 401k that we saved for, they pay all of those bills out of our money. That's why it's important to protect yourself. I teach people how to protect themselves, their families, and their nest eggs. So they pay for everything. And then if you have a will, if there's any money left over or anything, then it goes according to your will. Then my sons and my grandkids will get whatever's left over, but they pay the money out first. And that could happen up from 6 months to 2 years. They'll keep that probate. It's a court case open to see if we owe anybody money. And so that's not a good situation. You don't want to be in a situation like that. So I teach people how to protect their assets from probate. And one of the things I teach is life insurance. Life insurance is non-probatable and it's non-taxable. And, it's the most efficient way to transfer assets. So, and assets via money. Nothing can really stop the life insurance. If you have a life insurance policy and you're the beneficiary, I'm going to come and sit down with you and fill out the claim form, and you're going to get a check for $100,000 or whatever the death benefit is. So I know, and what I do is I offer free confidential needs analysis. If anybody wants to call me or, email me or text me if they have any questions, I don't care how old you are, how young you are. I do free confidential needs analysis. And what that means is I will, in Connecticut, I'm licensed in the state of Connecticut. So I will sit down with you and or your family, ask you questions, and based on your answers to my questions, I would make the appropriate recommendation for you in terms of putting your affairs in order,
Mm.
leaving you in a better place than I found, or at least setting up a plan so you can get there.
Okay.
So that's what I do. Just call me at 203-687-2778, or you can text me, or you can send me an email. And my email address, I should have put this all up there. I'm just thinking about it now, but it's vlambert2778 at yahoo.com. And I will be happy to provide anybody with any information. And every situation is different. And I customize plans for everybody because there's no two people alike. You know what I mean? Like even like a husband and a wife, they may have different Medicare plans or health plans because one might take medications, one may not. Everybody's different, so it's important to know the questions to ask. So I ask
Mm.
questions like, how many times you go to the doctor? Are you taking any medications? Any overnight stays in a hospital and things like that? Because life insurance, it's an underwriting process. You have to get approved for it. It's based on your age, your gender, and your health.
Why? Why does my gender matter so much in the health insurance? I know. I bet I'm
Life
asking
insurance.
life insurance. I know that's just like a random question, and my brain was like, "Oh, gender as well," because I know that your age and how much you make is one of the big factors. But what's also the big factor of my gender and your gender, if I may ask?
Okay, so in life insurance, men usually pay more because they take more risk. And that's based on surveys that was done internationally, I believe. Men drive faster, or even your auto insurance is higher for men.
Hmm.
Life insurance is higher for men. You know what insurance is lower for men? Long term care, because you don't see, if you ever go to a nursing home, you don't see a bunch of men there. You see mostly women.
Mm.
So, yeah, because you take more risk. That's why men are higher. So it's important to get life insurance at a very early age, and it's important to know what type of life insurance you're going to get so that the premiums never go up for the rest of your life. And
Mm.
so, and life insurance is protection. If you are married or, yeah, or living with a sibling and you guys have a house together and the all the bills are $1,000 together, you pay 500, you pay 500. One person dies, the other person can't afford to pay the whole 1,000. So if you don't have insurance to pay the house off and they continue to pay the utilities or whatever, then they're going to have to downsize. Somebody's going to lose out. So life insurance is a great way to protect yourself. It's a great way to preserve your legacy, and it's a great way so that your children or your family members don't have to suffer.
Wow.
Because somebody's going to be left with the burden of taking care of your final expenses.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my tip for today
Wow.
for young folks. You have any other questions on the three circles? That's complicated, isn't it?
It's a little bit complicated, but in my head. I just see it as the other one you had, and it's just a more depth
Mm-hmm.
perspective of what you already had of the budget, but it's also giving us more of what happens when we get older, like the
Yep.
taxes, as you said. For once, I didn't even know what probate was. I'm glad that you told me what it is.
Mm-hmm.
LTC, all that type of stuff. That it shows that our 401k is always going to be attacked, while we don't even know it sometimes.
Well,
And my
unless
what
you're
I'm
watching
understanding.
the news. So let me rephrase that. Your 401ks are usually in the market,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, depending on which way the market go, you could lose money or you could earn, earn money. That's why evil number 4 on that 3 circle is market fluctuation. If it goes up, you make money. If it goes down, you lose money. And so what's happening right now is going down and people are losing money. And that's never a good thing. If you're younger and you lose money and it takes like 10 years to make it up, that's not too bad. But if you're in your 60s and you're about to retire in a year or so and you lose 200,000 in your 401k, that's not good because
Mm-hmm.
you're relying on that to, you know, to complement your income, not your income, your social security,
Mm.
supplement your social security or something. So, yeah. So do you think this was helpful to other people out there, or should I have explained it in a different way? I just want to make sure I'm reaching. You're 20, so I'm asking for your opinion.
My
You're a
opinion.
mature 20. You're a
Thank you.
mature 20, I have to
I
say.
appreciate that. And I feel I've learned a lot and it was very simplified. And when I felt like I didn't understand, you didn't say, "Oh, you should just look it up." You actually gave your time and explained a thorough depth of what it is. I bet a lot of people didn't know what a probate was, and you explained it perfectly and telling us, "Oh, our 401k is in the market, it goes up and down." You're
Mm-hmm.
telling us young people this is going to happen to you, but you still have time in your life, and you're showing us how to perfectly be able to just have a budget when none of us really know it. Because
Mm-hmm.
for me and I bet a bunch of other kids, just when, oh, they have brand new shoes, 120, buy it instantly. Or like, oh, this person is making music and we want one of their like shirts,
Mm-hmm.
like that's like $60. So like showing us that we should properly keep a budget and keep a small amount saved to be able just to pay off a rent, and we want to move out pretty soon, just to be
Good.
even have it. Like let's say I want, when I'm thinking in my head with everything you were talking about, it's just like I'm living with my parents. I can still make more money, and I can like make enough money to be ready to move out, and still need to build a little bit more to be able to just like, oh, okay, now I live there, I have money for the next month, and
Mm-hmm.
always have money when I move out. Don't just move out and not have the money there.
Exactly. Have more than enough.
Mhm.
Good, good. And I also, gave out my information. So,
Mhm.
there's no question. No question is a dumb question or stupid question. I always say that. I have a stupid question, but there is no stupid question. Ask anything. Call me, text me, ask anything at any time if
Mhm.
you didn't understand everything. And it's tough to generalize a lot of things over the radio or, Zoom or whatever. But when I sit down with individual families, I'm taking personal, true numbers and making a recommendation based on your situation. And
Mhm.
that's what I think is important, to have everything customized. Like, you hear all these insurance commercials, you can get a life insurance for 9.95 if you're 50. You could get life insurance, the same plan, if you're 80. Think about that. Does that make sense?
No,
No. So there's
I
something
just
missing.
confused me for a quick second.
There are commercials like that. So anyway, I hope I left questions in a lot of folks' minds
Mhm.
to give me a call. I really do. I hope you guys blow my phone up, all you young people especially, and just ask questions.
Okay.
And there's no questions, a stupid question. And I want to thank you for being a guest on my show today,
No
and thank you for
problems.
giving me this idea. I just hope it works out for everybody, because I just want everybody to be prepared for worst case scenario.
Yeah.
If you're prepared for worst case scenario and the best thing happens, oh well, you just saved extra money,
Mhm.
for example. And that's it, because I think we're headed for tough times,
Mhm.
unless there's a lot of changes. Even if there are a lot of changes right away, it's going to take a couple of years to correct what's already been done. Put it
Yeah.
like that. Okay. So thank you, Jose.
No
I hope you have a
problems.
wonderful day. I want
You
to thank
too.
the audience for tuning in. And we will see you in a couple of weeks on Venita's podcast.